Welcome, everyone, to Partner Up with Amy Carroll. As a communication coach, trainer, speaker, and author, I'm delighted to be your host and excited to bring you insights and ideas to help you solve your communication conundrums. This is the 52nd episode of my show, Partner Up with Amy Carroll. If you want to find out more about me, what the show's about, feel free to listen to previous episodes on my website, carrollcoaching.com, or go directly to the voiceamerica.com business channel. Be sure to download the app, or you can always tune in using your favorite podcast app. Now, if you missed last week's show, I interviewed Ellie Von Planta. We talked about what she has learned as a counselor of psychology, counselor of psychology at the Realign Institute. Also, how, after the end of her marriage to a man in the military, she released herself and her children from that mindset and raised them with a partner-like attitude. In addition, we talked about her role as president of the Employee Representation Committee at UBS during the financial crisis of 2007-2010. She really was the voice of about 30,000 workers in Switzerland.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So be sure to check out that episode from August 20th. And today with me is Talitha Vee, my social media gal and sidekick. Welcome, Talitha.
Hello.
And
How are you?
We do have a guest appearance, potentially with her adorable, gorgeous dog Poncho, who may have things to say to us during the show. It's entirely possible.
Yes, indeed. I'm actually dog sitting. As you can see behind me, this is not my house. I'm house and dog sitting for the next couple of weeks. So there may be some doggy action behing me, kind of barking from one side to the other.
Oh, yeah, because you have more than one dog.
I have two, yes. Hoping they're going to go to sleep for the next hour.
Okay, we're prepared for anything. So, listeners, what's interesting about T, as she likes to be known, is we've worked together for about 3.5 years now. Mm-hmm. And the cool bonus of this working with T is that the relationship has blossomed into a rich friendship, which means for me that we are constantly sharing partner experiences on this amazing journey called life.
Very true.
Yeah, and T, you've been pretty much practicing partner since joining the team. And it's great because listeners, you're going to get to hear her personal partner pitfalls and progress. Perhaps you're going to be, I hope you'll share a couple of stories today.
Absolutely. And there's been lots of pitfalls and lots of progress. So yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah. And you really are living proof that you can upgrade your communication and get more satisfying results by doing so.
Yes, agreed. We like to call it reality research, don't we, Amy?
And today, listeners, our theme is bravery. That is how to put on your partner pants to get results in all areas of your life, to really be able to make powerful shifts. Mm-hmm. And this episode was inspired by a book that I just finished reading. And I said to T, oh my God, T, this book is amazing. We have got to share this with the listeners.
Yeah.
It's called Brave, Not Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Reshma Saujani. And you might know that name. She is the founder of Girls Can Code.
Right.
Yes.
And just to be clear for the listeners, I haven't actually read the book yet. I tuned into a couple of Reshma's podcasts today, and I can highly recommend that. Mm-hmm. And if I understand correctly, Amy, Reshma recommends 10 different ways to build bravery.
Yes.
Is that correct? 10 different ways. Okay.
At least 10, T. And then there's a whole bunch of strategies. I mean, it went on and on and on with very applicable, crystal clear recommendations.
Wow. Awesome. Well, let's go through some of those then, one at a time. Yeah. The first one is called actively seek out feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Fill me in. What does that mean?
Well, I'm guilty of this too. I think a lot of us avoid constructive or critical feedback because it can feel scary.
Absolutely.
And, just because I know that about myself, I will often push myself into situations to get feedback. Or like I have these two questions that I invite my clients to ask. One is, what can I do more of or differently to be a better sister, neighbor, boss, client, coach? I ask that of my coachees a lot.
Okay.
So T, the second question is the doozy. What do you need to tell me that you don't want to tell me?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
See, I'm already scared to ask that.
Of
To anybody.
course.
I don't want
Right?
to hear
Because
it.
they might tell us.
Right. And how
Yeah.
does that go generally?
Well, often you need to ask it multiple times before most people will tell you honestly. And you got to be prepared that they may tell you something you don't like or you don't agree with. And rather than reacting, you really want to be self-coaching and just say, okay, so if oh, there you are, Pancho.
Pancho's joining in.
Well, maybe that might be some feedback from me. Who knows? And if they tell me something I don't want to hear, my job is to listen, to reflect back. So if you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you suggest, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Then I clearly say to the person, I'll consider it and come back to you.
Even if it's hurtful. The thing I want to,
if it's hurtful.
If it's hurtful, yeah. If there's anything that's kind of painful to hear.
Yeah, because most of us are going to be on the defensive.
Something to look out for.
Okay. And then the second part is I got to make sure I follow up, because it's clear, it's important. People think if they're asking for feedback, then they have to implement the feedback that the person has given them. And that's not true. My feeling is somebody says something to me, they have every right to say it. My job is to receive it without obviously sounding or looking defensive.
Okay.
And then consider it. I might need a day. I might need 3 days. I might need 3 weeks. And then come back to the person to say, hey, I thought about what you suggested and I've decided to implement it, blah, blah, blah. Or I've decided not to implement it for this reason.
Okay.
So it's important that, because if you give me feedback and you might also be unconscious or innocently assuming that means I'm going to do that thing. And it's important for you to understand, oh, I've heard it. I'm considering it, and I either will act on it or not act on it. And the reason why I may choose not to act on it.
I like the give yourself time to maybe ask them if can I get back to you next week or next training session, because we probably would go on the defense if something hurtful is coming through.
Right. Totally normal.
So that's good to have in mind. And
the thing is, so many of us really don't know the blind spots we have.
How do we get to know the blind spots?
Make other people do the work. What do you need to tell me? I don't, it might be hard because either I might not be able to see it for myself, or I may not want to. My ego might be too fragile or too scared. So, have someone else do the heavy lifting.
It's huge.
Right? And one of the things that Reshma says is don't hide from rejection, own it. So go into, it kind of makes me think of the idea of the concept of lean into it, lean into people giving you constructive or challenging feedback.
Okay. Another one to put on my list, Amy. Maybe thinking how I can put this into action. Wow. Okay. So let's look at number 2, Amy. Get your fear signals straight.
Yeah. So this is where she recommends that you train yourself to override the fight flight reaction. Even by doing the thing your brain may be telling you not to do because it feels too scary, though she recommends doing it in low stress, low stakes situations. And it makes me think about, I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell the story, though. I think it's probably a good example. Let me rewind with a different story. I remember there's that famous comedian. He's an actor, and he, maybe during the break we can come up with his name because it's not going to come to me right now.
Because that didn't help.
No, it didn't at all. He, American.
Really helpful.
He used in high school. He used to go to school in his pajamas to see if he could withstand the ridicule.
Okay. Wow.
Right. Okay. So take that example. And what I did was several years ago, let's say it was at least 5 or 7 years ago, I flew from Switzerland to San Francisco and I had to rent a car. Now, this meant that I had to get in a really, 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 really long line to get on a bus to go to the car rental agency. And for whatever reason, I decided that I didn't need to stand at the end of the line. And I was just going to go to, stand in the front because I was feeling rather privileged, perhaps.
Okay.
And I knew I was taking a risk by doing this because it was pretty obvious. Everyone could see me. And sure enough, there's a guy at the front of the line who sees me do this. I'm not even standing in front of him, and it triggers him like nobody's business. And he is kind of screaming at me, like across several lines of people and making it really obvious, who it is. And he's right. What I did was wrong. It was unethical. It was obnoxious.
Yeah. So can I just go back one step? You actually did that purposefully. You wanted to have some kind of reaction. You were putting yourself into.
I was kind of doing it. And as I was doing it, I knew I was taking a risk to be opening myself up to criticism.
Okay.
So I wasn't like, ooh, let's see who I can piss off. It was more like, oh, it'd be really nice if I don't have to wait in this long line. Oops, this is risky.
So you just pretended to not see the line.
I don't remember now how I managed it. I think it was sort of easy to just sort of ease my way in. At the same time, it was really obvious. I knew what I was doing was wrong.
See, this is shocking for me to hear as a British person, because in France, queue is an issue. Yeah. French people don't kind of respect queues, and that's just part of their culture. They'll just jump in front of you and go.
Yeah, I was channeling my inner French person.
I think so, because this is something that I've had to get used to, because British people are kind of like everybody in their place, and this is the rules, and nobody would. So okay,
this guy might have been half British, because
maybe.
And in this, what I was doing, I agree with the British philosophy. What I was doing was not cool. And maybe it was jet lag, maybe it was privilege. There are a couple of reasons why I thought it was okay for me to do it. Though I remember consciously thinking as I was doing it, Amy, there's a risk that you're going to be called out. And so that part, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. I'm taking a risk here. And so that was me. What I didn't realize until, after the fact was I was putting myself in the line of fire. I was, it was an easy target because I was in the wrong. And this guy is just verbally aggressing me. And that's right. And it's a reasonable situation where I could go on the attack and fight back, or I could cry or run away or something. Yeah. And so what I was forcing myself to do in that moment, even though inside my body, I was like, it's kind of hot in here and this is really uncomfortable. I could just slip into the crowd. I was like, okay, Amy, it's like that expression, you made your bed, now you have to lie in it. So
what did you say?
Nothing.
Oh,
and it,
one of those cheeky pauses again.
No, it was, I was practicing being Zen.
Okay.
I was
calm.
I was practicing being calm in a situation where someone was being aggressive with me. So to me, that was a concrete example where I was actively working to override, the predator or the prey reaction, the fight or the flight.
Okay. So you really took the reality research to the next step.
Yeah.
I don't recommend listeners try this out.
No, I don't either. Unfortunately, there's going to be situations we're going to find ourselves in, perhaps more innocent than the way I approached it.
Possibly.
And you're going to find yourself that you're going to want to react in fight or flight. Someone's going to maybe accuse you unfairly or unknowingly of something. Yeah. And that's a even more tempting to go predator or prey.
To defend yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Or if someone else you're with is being attacked, to defend them. 100%. So in those situations, can you override that instinctive reaction to stay calm and Zen? Because that will pay off in other high stress situations.
Okay. So it's being aware of those signals and what triggers to get your fear signals straight.
Noticing the signals as they come up, reminding yourself, okay, no one's going to, this guy didn't have a knife. He wasn't threatening me physically. He was just, verbally aggressing me. My life is now at risk. So just being conscious and aware of that, and seeing if you can keep yourself physically, externally as calm as possible. Because internally, you'll still probably
There's lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so should we move on to number 3?
Yeah, I hopefully don't have any more reveals like that for the
This one could trigger some reveals. Start before you're ready.
Yes. This is specifically challenging for perfectionists to, especially I think that the stereotype, women even more than men, that idea that they want to be 100% or 120% ready before they commit to something. And it's often because we're wanting to avoid criticism, we're wanting to avoid failure, and that's understandable, except that holds us back a lot.
Of course, yeah.
And if you wait till everything is aligned, it might be over. So you want to live with this no regrets kind of attitude. And often we regret more the things we don't do than the things we do.
Always. Yeah, always. Okay, that's great advice. Okay, so number 4, choose potential for failure.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the earlier one about putting yourself into the line of fire potentially.
But it's taking risks, isn't it?
Yes. And if you're doing it consciously, and I'm going to, ask this person out on a date. I am going to ask for a raise. I'm going to ask for a discount. I'm often putting myself in that space of vulnerability and risk because I know that it helps me to get more comfortable with when I do fail, and
you haven't really lost much anyway. If it's no, you're back where you started, right?
Well pointed out. Yeah. And it grows my confidence.
Yeah.
So even if it's doing the challenge that grows your confidence, not necessarily succeeding at the challenge.
Creating those pathways in the brain.
Yeah. And something that I want to make sure I'm saying her name correctly, Reshma. She has a hashtag, Fail Friday Moments. So she invites people.
I saw that on her Spotify. Right. That's great. What a good idea.
Yeah.
Every Friday, you send to social media or your moment of fail.
Yeah. Maybe we should start doing that for social media.
Why not?
Okay.
Although you're pretty successful when you ask for discounts or positive stuff happens to you because you've been practicing partner for all these years.
And because the strategy works, because it can work with someone who's using it for the first time too. Though the downside is because it works so frequently, when it doesn't work, it's a little bit of a shock for me. And sometimes my ego gets triggered. So I have to, my job is to stay partner, even if I don't get what I want, so to speak.
Yeah, good job. Okay, so number 5, Amy, are we ready for that?
Well, I think I want to say more about this thing about failure. You're also celebrating the fact that you took the risk, as we said. You can now pivot to your next move. So there's multiple steps. I don't know if I got all the steps in here. She talks about when you have the failure, shake it off. Literally. This is fascinating. Research shows that physical activity after an emotional blow is key for discharging energy.
Oh, hallelujah. Yes, it is. I know that. Living proof.
Didn't you tell me that you've been starting to start running? You started running recently and you noticed a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I just decided to put a lot more work into myself after the end of a relationship and feeling terrible for a long time. Focusing on me. After about probably a couple of months of throwing myself into sport every single day, because we all know that it releases the happy neurons and everything else, it's like taking off a cloak. Really felt like taking off a cloak of the moments of sadness were gone and the potential for depression had gone. And I just advocate getting out there every day into nature and doing some sport. So I'm interested to hear what she said about that.
Well, I don't remember that she went into a lot of detail, just that it really has a physical impact on us. And I've even heard the idea, there's something that people call, I don't know if they call it shaking, they'll do literally
shaking it off.
Yeah, literally shaking your body. And I know having a good dance party.
Yes. The chicken dance.
Well, that's for different reasons. Though having a good dance party can really shift my energy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it doesn't have to be heavy physical activity.
No.
Just going for a walk.
Exactly.
You know, that having my dog is getting me out of the house now from in front of the computer 3 times a day. But
Nice.
it's kind of started with that. And then I needed more. So the running came in. Yeah. And the surfing and anything else I can think of doing.
Yeah.
So go for it, people. Go for it.
Yeah. And then she talks about another step is to review, reassess, and realign. So after the failure, reassessing in a way to reframe the narrative, also focus on what you did right. This is an important one for people because they have a tendency to want to focus on only what
went wrong. For sure.
And then realign with our purpose to remember why we took the challenge on in the first place. You know, so I'm always looking for growth and development. So when I fail and I get kind of metaphorically slapped in the face, it's good for remember, Amy, you're doing this for your personal growth. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then she suggests gratitude. Think about what you appreciate, what you're grateful for, because it will literally shift your mood. And apparently it's not possible to feel gratitude and bummed out at the same time.
Yeah, it's not, for sure. Finally,
she says, the next step, try again. Every failure gives us an opportunity to learn and to do something different. So that's like, she really does a deep dive into the idea of when you fail, how to.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Because she talks about a significant failure in her life that really left her bummed out for quite some time. And so she's living proof of applying all of these strategies.
Fantastic. Have we got time to get stuck into number 5?
Yeah.
So she suggests doing something that you suck at. Good one.
Right?
Yeah. Because you're out of your comfort zone once again.
Well, it's worse than out of your, I guess it's so unpleasant to be so, for many of us to be so bad at something. You know,
there's different degrees, isn't there? Different levels. So, you know, for example, me taking running up again, I used to run. And when I started a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, I could only do 10 minutes. And then it grew into 15. And then and I was kind, you know, to myself saying, just 5 more. And so I kind of sucked at it. And today it's easy. Practicing.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And
practicing partner is also a great example.
Yeah, a lot of us we sometimes suck at that, or with certain people in our lives. Yeah. She explains how when we dare to do something that we're not skilled at, that we're really bad at, that it will build tolerance for imperfection, which is very healthy.
So true.
Expands what we're capable of. And get this one. It gets the gray matter in our brains to expand even after only doing something for 2 times, something new for 2 times.
Yeah.
That I have to tell you, when I read that, I was like, that was highly motivating. Okay. So I can grow my brain, you know, the neural pathways after just doing something brand new for twice.
It's insane, huh?
Right?
We are very clever human beings.
Yeah. So I'm grateful for my improv attitude, which is say yes to everything. Like when I was on my holiday, I'm thinking of a couple of things. I'd never ridden a tandem. And my brother has a tandem because he and his wife like to go out a lot, and it's an electric tandem. So it's speedy.
Yeah. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And I was really funny because my brother and sister-in-law were both like, are you okay to be on a tandem? And I'm like, yeah, why? Like, well, you can't really see too well in the back. Okay. And you really have to give up control.
And who did you go with?
My brother, Kevin.
Okay. Kevin.
Yeah. And I feel very safe with him. I was confident.
Yeah,
I was like,
him.
Right. And I had no problem giving up control. So they may have a different perception of me. I was very proud. I was like, I'm happy just hanging out back here. So yeah, that was excellent to be able to step out of my comfort zone and do something different. So listen, why don't we pause here? We're going to take a break in a minute. And listeners, if you want to connect with me, you can reach out to amy@carrollcoaching.com. That's 2 R's and 2 L's. Now, if you're ready to take your superhero partner powers into the next decade, join me for my online leadership presence course. You'll be able to find details on the website I just mentioned, carrollcoaching.com. And when we come back from the break, we're going to be hearing more about the Bravery Boost. And we're going to hear a real story from T about setting boundaries and being brave. Aren't we, T? We're going to hear that from you?
We are indeed.
Okay, cool. Stay tuned, listeners. You're listening to Partner Up with Amy Carroll on the Voice America Business Channel. Welcome back. My guest today is my social media gal, T. We've been discussing the fantastic book, Brave, Not Perfect by Reshma Saujani. She's the founder of Girls Can Code. And as we promised just before the break, we're going to kick off the second half with a live story from T, a true bravery story. So let's hear it, T.
Yeah, this happened very, very recently, and I think we discussed it a few days ago, Amy, so it's perfect timing for the show, and ties in nicely to the bravery theme this week, as well as what we discussed last week, which was setting boundaries.
True.
Now, I know we discussed setting boundaries with our children and at work, so it came in super handy in this personal situation last week. I'm going to dive in. I was staying at a friend's place and giving her a hand to get the new house in order. She just moved house.
And who's this friend? Let's give them some names.
Okay, so we'll call her Jennifer.
Okay.
She's feeling super overwhelmed, lots to do, lots going on. And I was there just to give her a boost. On the same hand, she needs a little extra. So I decided to call upon a friend, let's call him Fred, who is a well-known healer in this area. Okay, so 30 years experience, good at what he does. And she agreed. And we'd already met him the week before, last week or so. And the meeting was great. And we were willing to go. Well, Jennifer was willing to go ahead with this treatment. So good stuff. Now, after a couple of meetings, including the dinner at Jennifer's new place, Fred had already stayed over in the guest room because we'd had a great dinner, got into the discussion, a few glasses of wine, and it wasn't very sensible for him to drive back. And with the guest room being free, Jennifer very kindly offered that to him. So something that is kind of difficult to admit, and maybe other people out there will be able to, identify with the situation. Was that Fred was giving me signals of being attracted to me, and in a romantic way, and it wasn't reciprocated. So after that initial evening, I was kind of relieved when he left. And knowing that we still were going to call upon him for his help in a few days, it made me feel slightly uneasy. Okay. Anyway, so that said, we got to talking about that with Jennifer, and we were on our power walk and having a chat about how could we make sure that there was no door open to Fred feeling like he could stay over again. So, we decided to invite him to dinner for, of course, to thank him for his time and his lovely treatment and everything. So that's where we were at. Okay. What happens next is we power walk and we start to banter, and Jennifer and I were having real difficulty deciding what we were going to say. So it was very clear in my mind that I didn't want any lines crossed, and it was very clear for her too that she didn't want him necessarily staying over.
Right. And what was it that gave you the indication? Was he just flirting with you, or was it more than that that communicated that he was attracted to you?
Yes, a few signals, and also a phone call and a couple of texts in between the second time he came over. Yeah, it was kind of black and white, and I had to kind of turn my head away from a kiss that was aimed at me, and it was
that's
an
very
uncomfortable
black and white.
situation. And it's happened to me before. And it's something that's puts you in a really strange situation, because you kind of feel vulnerable.
Yes.
And start asking, what did I do? Did I give out any wrong signals? And honestly, I just think I was being friendly me.
Right.
So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. So Jennifer was super supportive and really understanding. And as I say, we got into the power walk, and we just couldn't get to how we were going to say what we needed to say. And that's weird. It didn't make sense to me, because we battled for about half an hour. And at one point I just thought, stop. And I said, let's stop. With all the training that I've been doing with Amy, and it's training. It's not, we don't have coaching sessions, as it were. We talk a lot because we're friends.
Exactly.
And you offer the coaching. And I just thought, what would Amy tell me to do? So I said, stop. We are going to have to rethink this. And being clear and kind, that's something you always say.
That comes from Brene Brown. That's a good
right
one.
Yeah, and I also love her work, so I thought we were looking at that and changing things around. And the other thing was, for me, is that we knew what we wanted to say. We couldn't just say it simply, because we wanted to be kind, empathetic. We didn't want to upset Fred, and we didn't want to hurt him. And in fact, if we really get down to the bone, and that's now my dog having a dream behind me, by the way, he's woofing in his dream. We were just not brave enough to say it.
Right.
Really, that was it. That's, when I asked myself, and I said to my friend Jennifer, why aren't we getting it? She just looked at me and said, I just think we're not brave enough. So eventually we worked on what we were going to say, and I decided to send a voice message, because a phone call may have put Fred in a difficult situation and really on the spot. And I wanted to avoid that at all costs, because he didn't need that, neither did I. A text was going to be maybe read wrong, and this was also in French, was going to be in French. So lost in translation.
Yes, I think that's a really good point, that texts have even less ability to communicate a specific tone and message. Good point.
Absolutely. And how many times have I communicated with a friend or somebody, it's been taken in a completely different way?
Yeah.
We all know that happens. So we finally put the message together, and I was able to leave the message, and I know that I'd let you listen to it, Amy. So maybe we look at what I said. And it was it was direct when I finally got to it.
Right. I remember,
I kind of sugarcoated it a little bit.
Yeah, there was a little bit of waffling. In some ways that made sense, because you want to bring in a little chit chat. So you're not, you don't want to go
welcome
too
to dinner. Please make sure you've got the time, and we're super happy that you're going to come over, and really appreciative that you're going to do this treatment. And also, I can't remember what I said.
Something like the translation was something like, and it won't be possible for you to stay over.
That was it. Right. So it was really direct, and that was what had taken so long for us to get to, because my friend was saying it possibly couldn't be maybe suitable for, and I was like, no, this isn't right. So we've got to be direct. And when it came, I was so happy to get that message across.
Yes. Yeah.
And not long after, maybe 20 minutes, I got a response. And there sounded like a little bit of disappointment. And on the same hand, he was gracious.
That's huge.
Yeah. So I think we did the right thing, leaving this message and allowing him the time to think about it and get back to me.
And yes, you're right. So you created a little bit of space, so he wasn't confronted directly with a phone call. It was a message. Also, that was really important for you, because otherwise, if you said, okay, I'll just tell him when he gets here, or I'll tell him when it's at the end of the evening, he can't stay.
Which was also something we discussed with Jennifer. Shall we just do this? And shall we just do this? And I kept saying, no, we can't do that. I think we've really got to set it from the, before.
Because that was a gift to you. That was an investment in your peace of mind, because otherwise the anxiety and stress you might have had throughout before he arrived, when he was there. Oh my gosh, how much is he drinking? So
he's not a drinker, by the way. It's just, there is a certain limit, I think it's 2 glasses and you can't drive. So I felt so much relief when it was said.
Now, T, I remember when you were telling me the story, you said something like, when Jennifer and I were talking about it, I gave her an explanation of partner, or
Well, in fact, no, she's been listening to the show, in fact. And
oh,
so I gave her a copy of your book, and she's
uh-huh.
actively working on partner in her life now and has been
Wonderful.
for about a month. So she got it.
Okay, so
She
you were
understood.
able to offer her some support tools for her to understand the thinking behind it, and then she was able to really support you in this exchange.
Yeah, exactly. Because she's been doing the backup work and watching the videos on your website
Oh,
and listening
wow.
to the podcast, tuning into the show every week, listen to the replays of the show. Yeah, it speaks. And so I was able to steer Jennifer into the partner mindset when we were completely off track, saying, hey, let's get back to this. What, as a partner, what do we need to do? And that's where the
Awesome.
kind came in.
Oh, that's great. So that
Yeah.
that was your guide.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say we enjoyed the meal. By 9:30, 10 p.m., graciously Fred left, and we looked at each other and gave us a high five. And she had the treatment and everything was well. So really,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
well
It's important
done.
work. Mm.
And I remember you compared it, said, oh, Amy, a year ago, I had a roommate situation
Mm-hmm.
and you coached me on it, though I never had the guts to say anything.
Yes, exactly. Do you remember that, right? When you came to visit me?
Yeah. And I'm not convinced that didn't pay off anyway. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, T, with that situation, with that person, you weren't ready or able to
Yeah.
speak up,
Yeah.
except I believe that may have planted a seed
Oh, I agree. It
that may have
absolutely did.
contributed to your success last week.
100%, Amy. 100%. I really wasn't ready last year. And I was kicking myself and kind of punishing myself that I
Mm.
didn't get to doing what you'd suggested. And there's been lots of little things on the way. In a
Mm-hmm.
year, I've come on leaps and bounds, and it's still not perfect. It's reality research. It's a daily practice. And this definitely paid off. And,
Oh,
for,
wow.
for any women out there or any men out there that have been in a situation that isn't comfortable or easy, when you have to decline and somebody steps over the mark. I mean, please think about this story and be clear and kind, as Brené would say.
Yeah. And I want to, we have a couple more points that we want to talk about that Reshma discussed. So I want to skip to number 8 because
Okay.
it relates so directly to your story.
Okay. Let me just get to number 8. Is that the nix the need to please?
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, this is it. It's kind of like my inner panic was, I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings and on the same hand, I'm number one. I should be important to me. And we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And as humans, I don't know why we want to please all the time.
Oh, because
Acceptance.
It's more than acceptance. We associate it with survival.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I displease someone, they may reject me. If they reject me, I may get pushed out of the tribe, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not rational thinking, though it's very unconscious for many of us. And I think that's why it happens. And yeah. And so often we associate our value as a human being with, if someone accepts me or rejects me. So I think it's important to get comfortable with the fact that not everyone's going to like you or understand you sometimes. Yeah, and if you know you're being clear and kind, like you said, you can live with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time many, many years ago, I had a young student who I was coaching him really directly and really challenging him. And he blew up at me. And he said, I think he literally accused me of causing him psychological distress.
Ooh,
yeah,
okay.
It was really kind of guilt-ridden and heavy. And then he slips in the fact that his father is a professional presenter or something like that. So I'm not saying I was perfect at coaching him and I could have adjusted, though I remember thinking, I'm not going to nail it 100% every time, all the time.
Yeah.
And it felt like this was a lot more about his baggage and his issue with his father and his need to please his father and maybe present the way his father thinks he should present.
And not your way.
And yeah, and maybe my style was it was confrontive or challenging for him. Though I remember thinking, okay, he's really pissed off. I really suck in his eyes, and I'd probably get a really bad recommendation if he were to make one.
Insist. Yeah.
And I remember just being like, all right, that it is what it is. I wasn't
able to let it go.
Yeah, that I really was able to just be at peace with the fact that my style and my approach is not going to be for everyone all the time.
Yeah. I hear it.
Yeah.
Good. Well done, you.
Yeah. And then this goes to, I think, let's skip to number 9 before we go back to number 6.
Okay. So trust yourself.
Yeah. And check with your intuition.
Yes.
Don't give in just to be agreeable, because this is where we can build resentment. And a lot of times, T, what I'll do is if I'm thinking about doing something, I'll check in. How will I feel if I do this? Or how will I feel if I don't do this, whatever it is. And then if I realize there's a risk that I will feel resentful, I'll take action to avoid that. Because if I feel resentful, that's telling me that something's off. And so that's a way that helps me to trust myself when I'm not always clear what to do.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we go back up to number 6?
Sure.
We said take on a physical challenge.
So
we mentioned that already.
Well, what we mentioned earlier was use physical exercise to expel negative feelings, negative state.
Yeah.
This is different.
Okay.
And it's like she talks about playing a sport to build self-esteem. And it's a way of challenging yourself outside your comfort zone. So I often think, because I've always had a story about me that I'm not very sporty, I'm not very athletic. And about 18 years ago now, my good friend Karen said, hey, Amy, do you want to come see my husband be a cheerleader, because he's going to be participating in a 42-kilometer, that's 26-mile ski marathon, cross-country ski marathon. I said, yeah, sure. Well, we go to the eastern part of Switzerland, an area called Davos, and we attend as spectators, the Engadine ski race. And there we watch about 12,000 people of all different ages and physical abilities do these 42 kilometers. At the end of the race, Karen says to me, hey, Amy, we should do this together next year. I said, Karen, you don't even know how to ski. She said, that's okay. You'll teach me.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's so bold, so brave.
Yeah.
And when I say yes to things, it's usually like, okay, I'm committing to it. So I said yes to this. And then I went home, T, and I calculated my current speed, because I was doing something called classic skating, which is in the tracks. And I was so slow that I wasn't even going to make the cutoff of the 6 or 6.5 hours. So it would have taken me 8 hours to do 42 kilometers. That's how slow I was.
So that could have put you off after calculating that. Essentially, that could have been no, let's, find an excuse. I'm never going to do it. And that happens, right?
The problem was I already had a solution.
What was your solution?
It was not a solution I was excited about. It was learning to do something called ski skating, which is like cross-country skiing, except you're rollerblading. You're pushing off on the skis instead of going straight in a track.
Awesome.
And you go faster.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, it takes more effort.
Yes.
And I was not convinced that I would be in the shape, the skill to be able to do this.
And you had a year to get ready, right? Is that what you said?
I did. I had a year. And
you can do a lot in a year.
Yeah, one can, if one pushes oneself.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the 3 weeks before the race, my quality of life just tanked because I was so stressed. I was not convinced that I would do the race.
Yeah.
And I was also worried if I did the race, I was going to suffer for 6 hours plus, 2 days or 3 days afterwards recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In the end, I did the race. I did it in 4 hours and 44 minutes. It was the fastest I've ever done the race since then.
Incredible.
The winds, the gods were with me because the winds were at my back almost the whole time. And
cool. And did your friend do it too?
Oh yeah. She was faster than me. She was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And
love it.
Ever since then, I do the race every year, every other year, because now I get what it does for my confidence.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Isn't it? So what's next on your list, Amy?
For physical challenges?
Yeah.
Well, apparently I'm going to be doing something called, I think it's called body surfing. So my friends have just invited me. You get on a surfboard behind a boat, and then you let go of the rope and you surf in the wave that the boat creates.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're going to be laying down?
No.
You're going to stand up?
Apparently I'm supposed to stand up. That's how it is in the videos.
So you're going to have to train with me.
Okay. Maybe it's not called body surfing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's called body surfing. That's kind of
that's
surfing.
That's
more to catch the wave.
Yeah.
I've seen it done. Yeah. Obviously, I surf quite a lot here, living by the ocean. So if you want a trip down and some support, I'll be there to help. Let me know how that goes.
I will. I'll have pictures.
Good. So let's jump into number 7, which is use your hands.
Yeah, I think there's something about doing something that's tangible, that's tactile, that uses a different part of the brain that can give one confidence. Whether it's, I remember putting together some IKEA furniture and I was so impressed with myself.
Yeah, that can be a challenge.
For some people, it's gardening. For some people, it's bike maintenance or house repairs. So yeah, that's apparently another way to show bravery, build bravery.
And just fixing something in the house for me.
Yeah, that's a bonus.
It's double whammy, isn't it? Because if you can do it yourself, you don't have to call on anybody, you don't have to pay anybody, and then you feel great afterwards. Yeah. And actually, Boo, my daughter is very hands-on, so if things get broken, we look at it together and go, come on, let's do it. She's great at it.
Wonderful. Yeah, you do so many things.
The dog, because I've got two doggies
now we've got a little dog. This is not, what's this guy's name?
This is not Poncho. This is Louie, a girl. And Poncho's next to me. He's too
Lori?
Louie.
Hi, Louie.
She can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to give them cuddles just to keep them calm.
Okay, so let's do the last one because we're just at 4 minutes now. So let's make sure the listeners get the final one. This is a doozy.
You can say that one.
This one, my friends, is no fucks given. And it's essentially just don't let yourself be worry about other people's judgment of you, because my friends, they will judge you. Our brains are built for that, unfortunately. And so Reshma gives examples to consciously look for stories of people who speak their truth.
Yeah, love
it. She had a whole bunch of examples. She said her examples were Madonna, the actress Frances McDormand, Beyonce, for sure. The comedian.
Divas.
What's that?
Divas.
Yeah. The comedian Amy Schumer, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, athlete Kieran Gandhi, actress Dame Helen Mirren. Yeah. And I would add to that list gymnast Simone Biles. What she just did a couple of weeks ago to dare to say, hey, I'm not in the right condition to perform, to be that bold and brave and listen to herself, to trust herself and say, and in front of literally the whole world to say, not doing it.
Hats off.
Right.
100%.
So there we go, listeners. Those are the highlights for the book from Reshma Saujani, Brave, Not Perfect.
Yeah. And don't forget, she also has a podcast if you want to head over to pick up on that.
And there's also a talk, if you do a search on Google, the Google Talks, they've got a great interview.
Ah, right. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to say real quick, my call to action is get the book, audiobook. She reads it, or the ebook or the hard copy. Doesn't matter. Get it.
I'm going to get it for sure. And my call to action is going to be, say what you mean, be brave. Don't go put yourself in a situation that doesn't feel right because you're trying to be kind, you're trying to be nice. And we also mentioned, just before we started the show, we were talking about this, Amy, and you kindly said that regarding my daughter, that she is being brought up in a different way. Do you want to tell listeners what you said?
I can't remember. What did I say?
So about being brave and saying what you really mean, and how, she falls down and she goes through difficult situations. And the way I'm learning to deal with that as a single mom is to allow her to not protect her.
Yes.
To let her
have her pain. Yeah.
And
fantastic.
Yeah.
And that, I remember what I was saying. That's what builds resilience. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Listeners, be sure to switch on, tune in, listen up, and be inspired next week when I'm hoping to hop on a call with Chaya
Mystery.
Thank you. Chaya Mystery. I should pronounce her name correctly. Yes.
Yeah.
She's a human leadership coach and consultant. So and even if it's not next week, it's going to be in a couple of weeks from now for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also feel free to check out my website, carrollcoaching.com, or connect with me on social media, Amy Carroll Coaching. And let me know what your communication challenges are, your successes are, and T and I will share them in future shows.
Yeah.
And if you're game for more, I'm going to be hopping over to Facebook Live about 5 minutes past the hour for a short chat on today's call. Thank you, T. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Amy.
And thank you, listeners. You've been listening to Partner Up with Amy Carroll on the Voice America Business Channel. Happy partnering, everyone.